If you guys don't mind, I'd like to get right into it. We will be in Exodus 3, and if you need a bulletin, we have some bulletins in the back, so just raise your hand and they will come around and get them to you. We're going to be in Exodus 3, and the title is God Is, and it could kind of be a supplemental message for this joy-filled life that we've been talking about. We'll kind of see if that actually happens or not, though. Here we go, Exodus 3, starting in verse 1. Well, before we start, in chapter 2, Moses left after killing the Egyptian, and then the Hebrews were fighting each other, and then Moses came up and they asked if he was going to kill them too, and then they ended up driving Moses out into the wilderness. While Moses was out in the wilderness, the Egyptian king died, and the Israelites started complaining and groaning about their slavery. And while Moses was in the wilderness, he found a wife and a family. And this is kind of where the story picks up. Moses is out with the flock. Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the far side of the desert and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire within a bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. So Moses thought, I will go over and see the strange sight, why the bush does not burn up. So a little background of the geography. Horeb was kind of far away. He was out on this excursion with his flock, and he's probably past this little cave bush area before. It was just out in the wilderness. But this time, he's probably passed it 10, 100, a cajillion times. But this time, there's something a little different. It was the burning bush. So that's why he decided, I'll go over and see what's up. When the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called to him from within the bush, Moses, Moses. And Moses said, Here I am. Do not come any closer, God said. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. So if this was holy ground, why didn't Moses take his sandals off ahead of time? Well, it's holy ground because God said it was holy. And we'll get more into that a bit more as well. Then he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Okay. At this, Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. Moses knows who the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob is. He knows what those names mean. And his reaction was to hide his face. The Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I'm concerned about their suffering. So I've come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the home of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. And now the cry of the Israelites has reached me, and I have seen the way the Egyptians are oppressing them. So now go. I'm sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. So God heard the Israelites groaning, and God was like, yeah, I have a plan. We'll send Moses. But Moses said to God, Moses thinking his own little thoughts here, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? Moses doesn't really believe God. And God said, I will be with you. And this will be the sign to you that it is I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you, as in plural, all of you Israelites and people, will worship God on this mountain. Moses said to God, well, listen, I don't really agree with that yet. Suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your father has sent me to you. And they ask me, what is his name? Then what shall I tell them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. This is what you are to say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you. Today we're going to unpack this I am who I am quite thoroughly. And this passage has a lot more in it that we're not really going to get to. So mostly we'll be packing the whole I am who I am. But first, keep that story in the back of your mind while I tell you another story. One of my jobs, I work with some students as a job coach. So I kind of teach them how to work. We work over at Clark Lake just doing some custodial and grounds work stuff. And my supervisor there, his name is Steve. He's an older guy, knows what he's talking about. And we worked very close together the first week of work or so. Took our lunch breaks together and stayed after and came early before, just kind of talking it up. And we got close, and it ended up he told me he was an atheist, which was kind of cool. Very respectable man. But of course, this opened up a lot more deeper conversation. We ended up asking each other a bunch of different questions. And with Steve, he has debated this whole God, atheism, religion thing for many, many years and many, many debates. So he knows what he's talking about. He has it logically figured out. It all makes sense in his mind about why he does not believe in any deity. Not just the Christian God, just any deity and forever. He just doesn't really believe it. So, of course, very respectable and intelligent guy. We talk about science stuff a lot. He's a science kind of nerd. So when we were talking, the one argument that got me, why he doesn't believe in any God, came in the form of a question. He asked me, if you were the only person on earth, would you know God? Would you know your religion? And that stuck with me for quite some time. And I kind of reworded it up here a couple different times. If you had never communicated with another being, would you know God? Or how did you come to know Jesus? And this question, again, a couple days, weeks, just kind of pondering it, that's a really good question. I don't know how to answer that. But my immediate rebuttal to this question, again, we were kind of science nerds together, and I knew that Psalm said, all the earth will praise the Lord, so, I'll just use some natural things. First one I did was BPG binding to the central cavity of hemoglobin. I know it's kind of way up there, but this is how we breathe. Do you know Tom has a laser pointer? Look at this. I don't know why he never used it. So I'm going to use it. So this is hemoglobin. And this is BPG, just this chemical that attaches to the middle of it. Oh, it's kind of shaky. And when a BPG binds to hemoglobin, it closes a little circle. And if you look at it sideways, it's flat, and then it puckers. And when BPG binds to hemoglobin, it stabilizes the T state. And the T state is, so hemoglobin holds your oxygen. So when you breathe in, all the hemoglobin in your lungs just kind of vacuum packs this oxygen, and it kind of binds to this hemoglobin. But since hemoglobin really likes oxygen, it has to be converted to the T state, which BPG does, so it can release into your body. So when your hemoglobin is going down into your leg, it's not sucking the oxygen from your leg, it's actually pushing oxygen out. So this was something I brought up to Steve, just this very intricate little thing. And to get BPG, you have to do this process here. I'm not going to go through all this. But you have to go through this little process too. So it's even deeper than just BPG binding to hemoglobin. And I'm leaving out so many details. I don't even know all the details. But hemoglobin has been studied so much in just this intricate thing. And like I said, we work outside. So I also brought up photosynthesis. I pointed at the grass and was like, dude, photosynthesis, how intricate that is. There's no way there's no way there wasn't a God. Just the intricacies of photosynthesis, even just how plants breathe, is so amazing. So here, light enters photosystem 2, and in here, light energy is converted into electrical energy. There's electron transport chains and just all this crazy stuff. It goes through this whole big, huge, long system. And this is like in an introductory biology chemistry course. This is diagram, so it's even deeper than this. This is the ATP synthase. It's actually kind of cool. It rotates. They don't really know how it rotates, but as hydrogen goes through like this, it rotates actually like a fan. It's really cool and intricate. And we don't even know how that happens other than the hydrogen going through. But again, I blew up photosystem 2 just to show you how, so photosystem 2, I just blew that up again to show you how intricate it is. And again, this is nothing compared to what it actually is. This is just so our human minds can comprehend what's actually going on in a plant. Why I shared all this with you? Just to show you that it's kind of cool, and it's what I told Steve. And the intricacies of this, so I shared this with Steve, and Steve replied to these arguments by simply smiling and saying, "Yeah, isn't it cool?" So it wasn't until a few days or even weeks passed after mulling over this question how I could kind of talk with Steve, and we went back and forth again and again, just very respectable, very, very good. And then it hit me. Steve is actually right. I probably would not know about the religion of Christianity if I was the only person. I would probably not know about God. And that's okay, because that's the point. God is a personal God. We would not be the only person on earth. Where are we at? God is a personal God. He wants to be in communion with us. He wants to have this fellowship going on every week, every day. God is a personal God, and we are to have a relationship with him. Why do you think we take communion every week? To commune with God, to commune with each other, to connect us all. Think of the Garden of Eden. We were not meant to be alone. The only thing that was not good in the garden is that Adam was alone, and that's why Eve was created. And I feel like if I was the only person on earth, that God would actually start talking to me too. So if you guys all leave, that'd be cool. But if not, that's fine too. So let's recap. What's the takeaway so far? God is a personal God. And from this phrase, personal God, comes significant implications. Yet before we get to the implications, we must try to define God to really understand these implications. See, because to say that God is a personal God, it's future changing, it's world shaking, it's astronomical. And to say that God is a personal God, to say that's life changing, is just barely scratching the surface of what personal God actually means. So we're going to try to explain why personal God is such a huge, huge thing. So what does God say about himself? Again, think back to the Exodus passage here. First, it says that God saw the Israelites. That's a sermon in itself. God saw the Israelites groaning. Do you believe God's seeing you right now? Do you believe God's seeing through what you're going through, highs and lows? God heard the groaning. Do you believe God heard you? If so, you'll be praying continuously. If not, you won't be praying continuously. It's as simple as that. If you actually believe that God heard you. God was concerned for the Israelites. Do you believe God was concerned about you right now, what you're going through? Again, if so, praying continuously. He also said, "I am who I am." And we're going to park here for quite a while. The severity of the statement is so large. I don't have the words to explain the severity of the statement. I'm going to try, but just know I cannot fully comprehend. We cannot fully comprehend what this statement means. And we hear it all the time. That's the crazy thing about it. We hear, "Oh, the great I am, the great I am." But what does that actually mean? Of all the facts in the world, this is the most basic fact. It is the most fundamental realization. The entirety of the world hinges on this statement. This description that God gives himself is so large. I'm going to break it down into 10 or so type of things that I kind of stole from John Piper, but I'm going to do it. And this "I am" is what is translated into Yahweh. So 10 things to kind of describe what I am means, what personal God means. The first one, God has no beginning. Again, just kind of think of that. We all have a beginning. We know what a beginning is, but God always was. He has no beginning. And with that comes no end. God has no end, which means he can never be out of being, which means he is being. He's the definition of being, which leads to absolute reality. God is reality itself. God was there when there was no space, no universe. There wasn't emptiness. Emptiness wasn't invented yet. There was no emptiness. God was. It was only God eternally. Again, these are some huge things that way over my head and can spend whole lifetimes just thinking about them. God is utterly independent. There's nothing we can do or any force in this entire universe that can change God or manipulate God. He is totally independent of everything. Nothing needs to support God. He doesn't need our prayers. He doesn't need our praise. He loves it, for sure, but he doesn't need it. Number 5, everything else has complete dependence on God. So we say God is the foundation, and you build a house on the foundation. There can be no house without the foundation. There's a term in about every science class I've ever taken. It's called entropy. And entropy, it can be calculated, and this is what it is. Entropy means highly ordered, and then more disordered means more entropy. The entire universe is going from this highly ordered state into this more disordered state. The entire universe. You can think of it, the best example is an ice cube. You have just an ice cube sitting on a table. It's a nice, perfect sphere, and then as it heats up, entropy happens, and it becomes more disordered. It turns to a liquid and kind of goes out all over the table. And to make water into ice, you need a refrigerator. And do you guys know how much energy a refrigerator uses? A bunch. So to go from here to here, it takes more energy. But the system as a whole, the whole universe, is still going in this direction. The entire universe is getting more disordered as we continue in life. Even if you make something ordered, it takes more energy to do that, so it's still becoming more disordered. And this has been studied a lot. This is a real thing. But it gets me thinking, if the whole universe, not just Earth, not just humans, not just the microscopic stuff, but the huge universe, millions and millions of miles, if it is continuously becoming disordered, then it had to start highly ordered as perfect, or it has to be sustained. And to do that, we use the phrase, God holds the whole world in his hands. Because God is holding the world, we can survive. If God does not hold the world, we would turn into chaos. This is what chaos is. We would just turn into chaos. So to our 5th one, everything else has complete dependence on God. We have to depend on God for our pure existence. Because without God, we are literally just tumbling into chaos and chaos. It is only from the energy and the being of God that this universe can survive. Not just us as well, we're part of the universe. And rabbit trail here. That whole entropy thing, I've stayed up so many nights just talking about that with some of my roommates and friends. That's just one of our go-to topics, so I felt like I had to throw it in here so I can tell them that I did. So number 6, all the universe is nothing compared to God. Absolutely nothing compared to God. God is so big that we are nothing. God is constant. Again, this goes back to the no beginning and no end. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He's not progressing because he is absolute perfection, where we coaches like to say you either get better or you get worse. That's not true of God. God is always perfect, always will be perfect, and always was perfect. He cannot get any better because he is the best. He's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's part of the constant thing that carries a weight in itself. God is the standard of truth. He's the standard. He's the standard of truth, goodness, beauty. He is right and just and sets his own standards and facts. He is the ultimate standard. What made the ground holy? Again, in our eyes, it was just dirt and rock in a little cave. Excuse me. But God said, no, this ground is holy. He set the standard of what is holy. So no matter what he says, no matter what he does, it is right and true and pure. Even if it doesn't make sense in our mind, to him, who is the ultimate standard, it is right and good. God is free. He does what he pleases. It is always right and beautiful. No constraints hold him back. He is completely free. And again, that goes back to this whole standard idea, is that since he is a standard, he can do what he wants and what he pleases, and what he pleases and what he wants is good. Always, always good. Because he is that standard of good. One of our last ones here, God is worthy. Because he is all of these things, he is worthy of our praise, of our adoration. He's the most important being in this entire universe. He is reality. He should be our reality. He is worthy of our attention, worship, study, life. So if God is all of these qualities and has these attributes, then he is more than worthy of our praise and admiration. We cannot even give him a fraction of what he deserves. And words, again, cannot fully describe. Moses had to hide his face. Once he heard who this God was, he had to hide his face. So let's recap again real quick. God is a personal God. And to understand the severity of that phrase, we attempted to define God with these 10 describers. And we're going to continue this description with something a bit more personal. Imago Dei, image of God. You guys have all heard many, many lessons about Imago Dei. I've done one. I think Miss Jackie has done one. Maybe, I know Tom has done a few. But this is the image of God. We are created in God's image. So if you want to know what God looks like, look around. Look to your left. Look to your right. That is what God looks like. That is what God is. I said I work with students that need a little extra help learning how to work. One student, his name is Joey. He has Tracher collar syndrome, something like that. And it's just kind of deformity of the face, neck, jaw. He has a soft diet. Hearing aids, and just spine is a little crooked and stuff. But he is also the image of God. I love sitting and talking with him because he gets what it means to live. Everybody in the whole world never gives him 2 seconds, just by his looks, and just he can't really talk very well, so he just lives kind of this quiet world, but he gets it. He is the image of God. He knows who he is. I just had to bring Joey up because, I love that kid. He is the least of these, and we can look around and look at this perfection of this congregation, if you want to call it that, and not see the least of these, but it is so important to take a look at those around you because they are also in the image of God. So now we're getting to some of these implications. Or we will get to these implications. Unfortunately, this message of the personal God, it is Corinthians uses it says it's the message of the cross, this idea that God is personal and wants to be with us. Unfortunately, this message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing. Steve, my supervisor, sees what we're talking about as foolishness. He does not understand. And the reality is he's dying. That he may spend eternity in anguish and pain. And I know there's people in your life as well that are in the same boat. Stats show that even many of you guys are perishing. But the verse isn't over. It doesn't stop that. Those that see it as foolishness are perishing. It continues to say, but to us who are being saved, the message of the cross, this relationship piece, is the power of God. I'm gonna read it all together here. For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. So the very thing that Steve and others scoff at, this whole relationship piece, is what will actually save lives. This is why it is so important to love one another, to see the least of these, to have proper relationships and show proper love. The old hymn states that they will know we are Christians by our love. Grab some water here. So let's recap again. God is personal and amazing, to say the least. We are created in his image with the realization of who God is. And we are created in his image. And with the realization of this, we have to act. There's no way we can sit still after learning who God is. After realizing the glories of God, one can do nothing. So what are the implications of understanding this idea of personal God? I put some examples up here. Like I said, once Moses realized who he was talking to, he had to hide his face because he was afraid. David danced in his skivvies. He was out there in his PJs dancing around once the Ark of the Covenant came in. Job fasted. Nehemiah rebuilt Jerusalem walls. And these are all of these examples are implications of understanding who God is. See, if Nehemiah didn't know who his Lord and Savior, who God was, there's no way he would rebuild those walls. It was hard work. Why would he spend his entire life rebuilding these walls if it was just for fun? It wasn't fun building walls. Paul wrote letters and many other things. Israelites actually went to war once they knew who God was. They knew he was this ultimate being that is unstoppable, so they went to war because they knew they would win. The 10 lepers that were healed, one of them turned back. And our good friend Crazy Harry, he was the man that was possessed by a legion of demons. And when Jesus came, they and dispelled them into the herd of pigs, and the herd of pigs ran down. That one man, the area that they were at, hated Jews. They were enemies. So after that encounter, Jesus left, and when they came back again, that whole area that hated Jews and the message and everything were believers of Jesus. They loved Jesus when they came back because of this one man. And this one man, Crazy Harry, his implication was to tell everybody what had happened. And that's kind of what I want to focus on. Show and tell. God is so great. Or show and tell. You guys remember when you were kids doing show and tell, you had, you bring in your favorite stuffed animal or a picture of your family or something, maybe your dog, and you were so excited to tell your classmates about this favorite item of yours, and it was easy to tell about it. You could go on for hours and hours and hours. The teacher probably had to tell you okay, calm down. We have to move on. This is the next person's turn. But this is what we should be like with our faith and our relationship with God and Jesus, that it is so great. There's no way we can not tell people about it because you want everybody to be there with you. That this ultimate power and energy, this absoluteness cannot stay inside of me. It has to come out. I have to invite others into it. This ultimate force of God wants and strives and allows us to be in relationship with him. Yet that's just the beginning. From the state of wholeness, when your being comes overwhelmed by his, comes forth joy and courage and strength. Strength and courage for what? To tell others about this relationship, to allow others to experience this ultimate force, to grow God's kingdom. Hear this, guys. God is a relational being that reaches others through us. We are not meant to be the only person on earth. Again, why did God create Eve? Because Adam was alone, and that was the only thing not good in creation. Moses asked, "Who am I that you should send me?" And God replied with, "I will be with you." Noah and Levi want to come up. They're gonna give us a little background music. This poem or reading that I'm gonna share with you guys is one of those implications of somebody that knows God, knows what he does, and cannot wait to share. It's the last words of a martyr. And a martyr is one who dies for their faith. And again, they can say these following words because they understand who God is. They understand this ultimate being. They can walk in confidence and joy because they know that this God is in them and with them. And this is why we can have a joy-filled life, because this God is with us and for us. So these are the last words of a martyr. I am part of the fellowship of the unashamed. I have Holy Spirit power. I've stepped over the line. The decision has been made. I'm a disciple of his. I won't look back, let up, slow down, back away, or be still. My past redeemed, my presence makes sense, my future is secure. I'm finished and done with low living, sight walking, small planning, smooth knees, colorless dreams, tame visions, worldly talking, cheap giving, and dwarfed goals. When God is up front, when you understand this foundational God being, you no longer need preeminence, position, promotion, applause, or popularity. You don't have to be right, first, tops, recognized, praised, regarded, or rewarded. When you have this ultimate being in your life, when you know, you can live by faith, lean on his presence, walk by patience, you can be uplifted by prayer, and labor by power. These are the words of the martyr. My pace is set, my gait is fast, my goal is heaven, my road is narrow, my way is rough, my companions are few, but my God is reliable. My mission is clear. I cannot be bought, compromised, detoured, lured away, turned back, deluded, or delayed. I will not flinch in the face of sacrifice, hesitate in the presence of my adversaries, negotiate at the table of my enemy, or ponder at the pool of popularity. I won't give up, shut up, let up until I've stayed up, stored up, prayed up, preached up for the cause of Christ. I am a disciple of Jesus. And I hope this kind of anthem-y, poem-y prayer thing resonates with you, and you can fully understand why somebody could say this. While I don't know the exact history of this martyr, but maybe a gun was held to their head when they wrote this or said this. When you can stand up and say what needs to be said or do what needs to be done, you guys are part of the fellowship of the unashamed. You have Holy Spirit power because of this great deity that is God, this absolute power, who wants to be in relationship with you and others around you. Dear God, just this opportunity to be able to talk to you, and I know that you hear me, God, that you hear us. Father, you are so great. Words cannot even describe. Father, again, I just thank you. Just to be able to stand up here and try to understand you, just that is a blessing in itself, my God. Lord, keep us coming closer and closer to you so we can bring others closer and closer to you as well, Father. Lord, you are reality itself. I can't even comprehend, Lord, what that even means. I thank you and love you, Lord. Who am I that you would send me? You are with me, Father. And I know you're with this congregation as well, Lord.